The restaurant was alive with energy that evening. The sound of plates clinking, glasses being filled, and low chatter filled the air, creating a comfortable background hum. Waiters moved quickly between tables, carefully balancing trays loaded with food and drinks. Among them, one young waitress carried herself with a quiet determination. She had learned over time that the job required patience, a good memory, and a gentle smile, and she had mastered them all. Despite the chaos around her, she moved with a sense of calm, weaving between tables without spilling anything. The evening crowd was busier than usual. Business people in suits sat in corners, discussing meetings over wine. Families occupied larger tables, their children laughing and occasionally dropping utensils, which the staff quickly picked up. Friends gathered in groups, sharing stories and enjoying the lively atmosphere. The waitress was used to this, having worked here long enough to recognize the rhythm of the restaurant and the personalities of the regular guests. She always greeted each person politely, remembering orders and preferences, and she never let her tiredness show, even after long hours of work. At one of the tables near the back, a man sat alone, quietly observing the scene. He was dressed impeccably, with a presence that immediately drew attention. People nearby noticed him but did not approach, giving him space. He was known in certain circles as a successful and wealthy individual, someone whose opinion and actions often carried weight. Tonight, though, he seemed interested not in the restaurant or the food, but in the people around him. He watched with careful attention, as if searching for something unique amid the familiar bustle. The waitress approached his table, holding a notepad in her hand. She had served him before, and there was a subtle familiarity between them, though they had never spoken much. He looked up as she arrived, giving her a small, polite nod. There was a spark of curiosity in his eyes that she couldn't quite place, but she simply smiled and asked if he was ready to order. He responded with a calm voice, giving a simple order, but he kept glancing around the restaurant as if waiting for something unexpected to happen. The waitress moved away from the table, her steps confident but her mind briefly lingering on the man who seemed different from the usual guests. She wondered what it was about him that made her pause for a moment. Perhaps it was the way he observed, quietly and without judgment, or perhaps it was just the sense of mystery that seemed to surround him. Either way, it was a feeling she had not experienced often in her line of work, and she quickly pushed it aside to focus on the other tables that needed her attention. As the evening progressed, she continued her work, serving plates of food, refilling drinks, and making sure that everyone's experience was as smooth as possible. She moved from table to table, exchanging smiles and brief conversations. Some guests complimented her on her efficiency, while others made small talk about the weather or the food. Each interaction required attention and care, but she managed it gracefully, never letting the stress of the job show. She had developed a skill for reading people quickly, understanding their moods and adjusting her approach accordingly. This skill had served her well in the busy environment, allowing her to navigate complex social situations with ease. Meanwhile, the wealthy man at the back observed her from his seat. He was not a stranger to success or influence, but tonight, he found himself intrigued by someone who operated in a completely different world from his own. She was part of the everyday life that he rarely experienced, yet she carried herself with a sense of dignity and poise that caught his attention. He watched as she interacted with the guests, noting her patience, her attentiveness, and the subtle confidence in the way she moved. There was something genuine about her, a natural charm that could not be bought or learned in the way wealth and status were often acquired. At one point, the waitress paused to take a breath, leaning slightly against a counter, while she watched a group of children giggling over their desserts. It was a rare moment of stillness in the middle of the evening chaos. The man noticed her pause and felt a sudden impulse. He had spent years surrounded by people who were drawn to him for his money or influence, and the authenticity of this young woman struck a chord within him. He wanted to see more, to engage in a way that would be memorable not for her service but for the person she was. The restaurant manager approached him briefly, asking if everything was satisfactory. He nodded politely but then leaned in slightly, speaking with a hint of intrigue in his voice. He requested something unconventional, something that would involve the young waitress in a way that no one expected. The manager raised an eyebrow, slightly surprised, but nodded in understanding, recognizing that the man was serious and that this evening would not follow the usual patterns. Back in the midst of her duties, the waitress had no idea what was being planned. She continued to serve, greeting new arrivals and managing orders with precision. The evening continued to unfold with its mix of laughter, conversation, and the soft background music that played from the restaurant's piano. The atmosphere was lively yet comfortable, and she felt a quiet satisfaction in her work. Despite the long hours and physical demands, moments like this made her feel capable and appreciated in small but meaningful ways. The wealthy man, meanwhile, made subtle signals to the manager, ensuring that the plan would unfold smoothly. He had a clear idea of what he wanted to happen, but it required careful timing and a willingness from the young woman to step into the unexpected. He did not seek to embarrass her or disrupt the evening. Rather, he wanted to create a moment of recognition and encouragement, something that could be genuinely uplifting and memorable. As the night wore on, the waitress began to notice that the man's attention was focused on her more than on anything else. At first, she dismissed it, assuming he was simply observing the restaurant or the service. But over time, she became aware of a subtle intensity in his gaze. It was not intrusive or inappropriate, but it carried a sense of anticipation, as if he was waiting for the right moment to involve her in something significant. She could not predict what that might be, but there was a quiet curiosity growing inside her, mingled with a slight sense of unease. The restaurant's energy began to shift slightly as the evening reached its peak. Guests were finishing meals, conversations had become more relaxed, and the music from the piano had taken on a softer, more intimate tone. The wealthy man finally made his move, standing and raising his glass to draw the attention of the room. The murmurs of the crowd quieted, and all eyes turned toward him. The waitress, still moving between tables, sensed that something unusual was about to happen, though she had no idea what it would be. This was the moment when the ordinary night of work intersected with an extraordinary opportunity. The young waitress, who had spent countless evenings serving meals and managing chaos with grace, was about to experience a moment that would remain etched in her memory forever. She could not have known it yet, but the attention of this wealthy, influential man would soon transform a routine evening into an unforgettable story of courage, surprise, and human connection. The restaurant fell into a sudden, expectant hush as the wealthy man stood, raising his glass toward the ceiling. The soft clinking of silverware against plates seemed to fade, replaced by the subtle sounds of whispers and shifting chairs. Guests turned their heads toward him, curiosity evident in their eyes. Some smiled politely, assuming this was a toast or a brief announcement, while others leaned forward, sensing that something unusual was about to unfold. The young waitress, busy at the nearby tables, felt a tingling sense of awareness. Her work had always been structured, predictable, and yet, in that moment, it seemed the rhythm of the evening was about to shift entirely. He spoke clearly, his voice calm but confident, filling the room without needing a microphone. He asked the young waitress to come forward, to join him at the piano, and play for everyone. The words hung in the air, carrying a mixture of surprise, amusement, and disbelief. The waitress froze mid-step, not expecting such an invitation. She had served countless guests, smiled through long hours, and handled moments of chaos with poise, but standing in front of a crowd, playing the piano on command, was something entirely different. Her heart raced, a mix of anxiety and excitement coursing through her veins. For a moment, the room seemed to hold its breath. Guests whispered among themselves, exchanging looks of surprise and curiosity. Some chuckled nervously, imagining what might happen next. The pianist was usually a professional, providing soft, background music that added to the atmosphere without drawing attention. Now, the attention shifted entirely, focusing on the young waitress, whose life had rarely intersected with moments of public recognition beyond the smiles of appreciative customers. The wealthy man's gaze, steady and encouraging, made her feel a strange blend of reassurance and challenge. He wasn't demanding perfection, only inviting her to step into a space she hadn't anticipated. She glanced at him, uncertain. Her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted her apron, and she felt a heat rising to her cheeks. Her mind raced through memories of playing a small keyboard at home, of trying a few songs as a child, none of which had ever been performed for anyone beyond family. She had never imagined herself in front of an audience of strangers, performing something as vulnerable as music. And yet, the man's encouraging smile, calm presence, and the quiet confidence in his gesture stirred something deep inside her. There was a part of her that wanted to rise to the challenge, to step out of her usual world and experience something extraordinary. The manager, who had been quietly observing from the sidelines, stepped forward to ensure that the moment unfolded smoothly. He guided her toward the piano, offering gentle reassurance and brief instructions. He reminded her to focus on the joy of the music rather than the eyes watching, emphasizing that this was a chance, not a test. The guests, now fully aware of the developing scene, watched with a mixture of anticipation and curiosity. The young waitress took a deep breath, steadying her nerves, and allowed herself to move toward the piano, each step deliberate, each movement weighted with both fear and excitement. As she approached the piano, the wealthy man continued to offer quiet encouragement. He did not speak loudly or command attention, but his presence was steady, a grounding force amid the whirlwind of her emotions. She placed her hands tentatively on the keys, feeling the smooth surface beneath her fingers. The first touch was hesitant, almost shy, as if testing the waters of this unfamiliar experience. The audience remained silent, sensing the fragility and sincerity of the moment. Even in her nervousness, there was a quiet dignity to the way she held herself, a grace that came from years of carrying responsibility and maintaining composure under pressure. She began to play a simple melody, a tune that had been in her memory since childhood. The notes were soft at first, tentative and uneven, but they carried an unexpected beauty. The sound filled the restaurant, weaving through the ambient chatter that had faded to a respectful silence. Guests leaned forward, some closing their eyes, allowing themselves to be drawn into the music. The wealthy man watched with genuine admiration, nodding subtly as the melody grew more confident. He did not need to say anything. His presence alone conveyed his support and encouragement. As the melody continued, her initial nervousness began to ebb. She found a rhythm in the keys, allowing her emotions to guide her hands rather than fear. The audience responded instinctively, clapping softly between phrases and murmuring appreciation. Children paused in their play, captivated by the music, while adults allowed themselves to forget the worries and distractions of their own lives for a few moments. The waitress began to feel a sense of liberation, a rare experience of being recognized not for her labor, but for her creativity, her courage, and her willingness to step into the unknown. She glanced at the wealthy man once more, his eyes encouraging and kind. It was as if he could see the hesitation fading, the blossoming confidence in her movements. There was a silent exchange between them, a connection born of shared recognition and unspoken understanding. She was no longer merely a waitress in a busy restaurant. She was a performer, a storyteller through music, and the audience was now her witness. Each note became an expression of courage and vulnerability, and the room seemed to respond, the energy shifting from surprise to admiration. The audience's reaction evolved as well. Initial skepticism and curiosity transformed into genuine engagement. Guests who had initially whispered among themselves now leaned in, absorbed by the unexpected performance. Some nodded to the rhythm, tapping fingers on tables, while others closed their eyes, letting the melody resonate within them. It was a rare moment of collective experience, where strangers in a restaurant became part of a shared emotional journey. The young waitress, feeling the energy of the room, began to play with more assurance, allowing herself to enjoy the unfolding experience rather than worry about perfection. Her confidence grew as she realized that the wealthy man's invitation was not a test but a gesture of trust. He had created a space where she could shine, not for his entertainment, but to honor her potential. The thought of that kindness, coupled with the supportive atmosphere of the audience, allowed her to relax into the music, discovering nuances and melodies she hadn't thought possible. Each note became a small victory, a testament to stepping beyond the familiar and embracing opportunity, even when fear was present. Minutes passed, though it felt both fleeting and eternal. The young waitress lost track of time, immersed in the music and the reaction of the crowd. The wealthy man remained attentive, his subtle nods and encouraging expressions reinforcing her confidence. Guests whispered words of praise, their faces lighting up as they experienced the authenticity of the performance. It was no longer about who was rich or poor, server or guest. It was about the shared human connection that music could create, about the courage to take a chance and the joy of witnessing someone do so. As the performance continued, the atmosphere became lighter and more celebratory. Laughter and soft applause emerged naturally between musical phrases, blending seamlessly with the melody. The young waitress began to explore the piano with more freedom, her fingers moving confidently across the keys, experimenting with variations and adding subtle flourishes. She was discovering not only her skill but also her joy in expression, a feeling she had rarely allowed herself to experience fully in the midst of work and routine. The wealthy man's satisfaction was quiet but profound. He had not sought to impress the crowd or make a spectacle of the moment. His intention was simple yet powerful, to provide an opportunity for someone to experience recognition, courage, and joy. Watching her gain confidence and the room respond with genuine appreciation brought him a quiet sense of fulfillment. It was a reminder that influence and resources could be used for moments of genuine human connection, and that sometimes the simplest gestures created the most profound memories. By the time she concluded the melody, the room erupted in applause. The young waitress, breathless and smiling, looked around at the faces of the audience, realizing that she had just experienced something extraordinary. The wealthy man's expression conveyed pride and encouragement, not condescension or judgment. Guests approached, some shaking her hand, others offering kind words and compliments. It was a night she would remember for the rest of her life, a night where a simple invitation had transformed into a moment of courage, recognition, and shared humanity. In that evening, amidst the ordinary routines of serving tables and managing guests, a rare and unforgettable event had taken place. A quiet waitress had stepped into the spotlight, guided by trust and encouragement, and discovered a new dimension of herself. The restaurant, once filled with the sounds of casual conversation and routine, had become a place of magic and connection. The wealthy man, the young waitress, and the audience had all been part of a moment that transcended roles and expectations, leaving each person with a story of courage, music, and the unexpected beauty of human interaction. The soft echoes of the last notes lingered in the air, mingling with the gentle applause from the guests. The young waitress remained at the piano, her hands hovering above the keys as she tried to process the whirlwind of emotions flooding her. She had never felt such a mix of fear, excitement, and exhilaration all at once. Her heart pounded, not from exhaustion, but from the realization that she had stepped into a place far beyond her usual world. The restaurant, which had felt like a controlled, predictable environment for her, now seemed transformed. Every glance, every whisper, and every smile from the guests carried weight, recognition, and a sense of shared wonder. The wealthy man stood a few feet away, his expression calm but deeply attentive. He could see the mixture of disbelief and pride in her eyes, the tentative spark of confidence beginning to grow. He did not rush her, did not force her to play more than she wanted, but his steady presence was a silent encouragement, a reminder that she was capable of more than she often allowed herself to believe. In that moment, she realized he had given her a gift, one that went beyond applause or recognition. He had provided a space for her to feel truly seen. She began to play again, this time more deliberately. Her fingers moved with purpose, recalling melodies she had tucked away in memory from childhood. She experimented, adding small improvisations that reflected her mood and energy. The room responded immediately, not with polite silence but with attentive curiosity. Guests leaned in, listening intently, some closing their eyes to fully immerse themselves in the music. The atmosphere was alive with anticipation and emotion, a rare magic that could only emerge when someone risked vulnerability and courage in equal measure. As the music flowed, the young waitress began to notice the subtle ways people reacted. A child tapping a finger to the rhythm, a couple exchanging a knowing glance, an older gentleman nodding in appreciation. It was a reminder that art and courage could connect people across different backgrounds, occupations, and ages. She felt a sense of humility and awe at the realization that something so simple as playing a melody could touch hearts in profound ways. It was no longer just about her performance. It was about creating a moment that resonated with others, an unspoken connection that transcended ordinary interactions. The wealthy man observed her quietly, recognizing the growth in her confidence. His initial curiosity had blossomed into admiration. He had not intended to create a show or spectacle, only to offer an opportunity, and now he watched as that opportunity transformed into something far more meaningful. The young waitress had stepped into her own presence, embracing her talent and courage, and the room had responded with openness and warmth. It was a reminder that genuine human moments could not be bought or orchestrated through status or wealth. They emerged when someone was willing to take a leap of faith. The waitress continued, allowing her emotions to guide her fingers over the keys. Each note reflected a piece of herself she rarely showed: the quiet determination, the hidden joy, the moments of doubt, and the triumphs over small daily challenges. The piano became a bridge between her inner world and the audience, a conduit for expression that words could never capture. She felt herself relax into the rhythm, losing the self-consciousness that had gripped her at the beginning. Music became her language, and the room became a shared space where emotion, courage, and artistry intertwined. Guests began to respond more openly, some swaying slightly to the music, others murmuring in appreciation. The sound was no longer just notes on a piano. It had become a shared experience, a living expression of human connection. The wealthy man's subtle smiles and nods reinforced her sense of accomplishment, reminding her that this was not a performance to meet expectations, but a moment to honor her own abilities and bravery. She began to feel a rare sense of freedom, realizing that courage often came in the form of small, daring steps, taken quietly but with sincere intent. Minutes passed, each one feeling both long and fleeting. The waitress's confidence grew with each phrase she played, each note resonating with meaning. She experimented with variations, adding delicate flourishes, and occasionally pausing to listen to the way the room responded. There was no pressure to be perfect, no fear of judgment, only the experience of fully inhabiting her talent and the shared energy of the audience. This was unfamiliar territory for her, yet it felt increasingly natural, a space where she could be herself without pretense or hesitation. The wealthy man's satisfaction was quiet but profound. He had not sought applause or recognition for himself. He had sought to create an opportunity for someone else to experience acknowledgement and self-discovery. Watching the young waitress embrace her ability, gain confidence, and inspire a room of strangers was more rewarding than any display of wealth or influence could ever be. It was a reminder of the power of encouragement and the potential for small acts of belief to transform lives in unexpected ways. The audience remained attentive, captivated by the growing complexity and beauty of her music. Some guests exchanged whispered comments, sharing their amazement and delight. Others simply listened, allowing themselves to be carried by the emotion in the room. The young waitress, now fully immersed in the moment, began to feel a deep connection with the people around her. The restaurant was no longer just a place of work. It had become a space of shared experience, creativity, and emotional resonance. She glanced briefly at the wealthy man, who gave her a small, approving nod. It was a silent acknowledgement of her progress, her courage, and her willingness to embrace vulnerability. In that moment, she realized that recognition did not always have to come in grand gestures or formal accolades. Sometimes it was simply the quiet acknowledgement of someone who saw potential and allowed it to flourish. She felt a sense of gratitude and relief, knowing that this experience would remain with her long after the evening ended. As she continued to play, her own enjoyment became more evident. She smiled softly, feeling the joy of creation, the thrill of expression, and the warmth of human connection. The audience responded naturally, some tapping their feet, others nodding along, and some simply closing their eyes to absorb the moment. The music had become a living, breathing entity, connecting performer and audience in a way that words could not. The young waitress felt a deep satisfaction in knowing that she had contributed to this shared human experience, a rare and precious moment of authenticity and courage. The wealthy man's presence remained steady, his subtle encouragement reinforcing her growing confidence. He had not orchestrated every detail, nor had he imposed expectations. He had simply provided an opportunity, and now he watched as it unfolded into something extraordinary. The young waitress, who had walked into the restaurant hours earlier unaware of the unfolding story, had transformed the evening into a memory that would linger in the hearts of everyone present. It was a testament to the power of courage, opportunity, and human connection, a reminder that extraordinary moments often emerge from ordinary circumstances when someone is willing to take a leap of faith. Eventually, she began to bring the music to a gentle conclusion. The final notes lingered, soft and deliberate, allowing the room to absorb the emotion and significance of what had just occurred. Guests remained silent for a moment, as if savoring the final echoes, before erupting into applause that felt both spontaneous and heartfelt. The young waitress, breathless and smiling, looked up at the audience and then at the wealthy man, realizing that she had not only faced her fear but had created something memorable and beautiful. The wealthy man approached her quietly, offering words of genuine admiration. His praise was sincere, not patronizing, acknowledging her talent, courage, and willingness to embrace an unexpected challenge. Guests began to approach as well, offering congratulations and kind words, their reactions a testament to the authenticity and impact of the moment. The young waitress felt a sense of fulfillment and pride, knowing that she had stepped into an unfamiliar space and emerged with confidence, joy, and a shared connection with the people around her. In that evening, the ordinary routines of work had been transformed into an extraordinary experience. A young waitress, through courage and a willingness to embrace vulnerability, had created a moment of beauty, recognition, and human connection. The wealthy man, through his quiet encouragement, had facilitated an opportunity for growth and self-discovery. And the audience, through their attentive presence, had shared in a unique and memorable experience. Together, they had created a story that would linger long after the music had ended. A story of courage, joy, and the unexpected magic of ordinary moments. The music had settled into a steady, gentle rhythm, filling the restaurant with a sense of calm and wonder. The young waitress's fingers glided across the keys with a newfound confidence, and she felt a sense of liberation she had never known before. Her initial nervousness had transformed into focused energy, and each note she played carried both her emotions and the reactions of the audience around her. Guests, once quietly observing, now leaned in with full attention, drawn into the moment and captivated by her authenticity. The wealthy man remained nearby, his presence quiet but reassuring. He had watched her journey from hesitation to confidence, from fear to courage, and now he observed as she began to truly express herself. His eyes held warmth and encouragement, letting her know that this was her moment, a chance to shine not for him or for the applause, but for herself. It was a subtle but profound support, and she felt it deeply, giving her the courage to explore the music more freely. She began to vary the melody, experimenting with different rhythms and harmonies she had never dared to try before. The sound filled the room in waves, sometimes soft and introspective, sometimes bright and lively. Guests responded naturally, their attention entirely on her, some tapping fingers to the beat, others closing their eyes to fully absorb the emotion. The energy in the room had shifted, moving beyond curiosity and polite recognition into something more intimate and connected. It was as if the music had woven a thread between her and everyone present, binding them together in a shared experience of vulnerability and beauty. The waitress noticed the subtle reactions of the guests. A couple exchanged glances, smiling softly at the unexpected joy of the performance. Children stopped their playful chatter, captivated by the unfolding melody. Even the staff, who were used to the busy rhythm of the restaurant, paused to watch, caught by the sincerity and skill of her playing. Each response reinforced her confidence, giving her the courage to continue exploring the piano and pushing the boundaries of what she thought she could do. The music became a dialogue, a conversation without words, connecting her with the people in the room in a way that transcended normal interactions. She glanced occasionally at the wealthy man, who watched with quiet admiration. His encouragement was subtle but powerful, a reminder that someone believed in her abilities even when she doubted herself. She felt a surge of gratitude and warmth, realizing that this moment was not about showing off or performing perfectly, but about embracing opportunity and discovering her own potential. The simple act of playing the piano had become an act of self-discovery, a way for her to connect with her own emotions and the shared humanity of those around her. The audience began to respond more openly, their reactions reflecting their genuine appreciation. Soft applause punctuated the music, smiles spread across faces, and whispers of admiration filled the room. The young waitress felt a sense of pride, not in a boastful way, but in the recognition that she had touched people's hearts. It was a reminder that courage and authenticity often inspire others more than skill alone. She was no longer just a waitress in a busy restaurant. She was a storyteller, expressing emotions and experiences through music that resonated with everyone present. As she played, she allowed herself to become fully immersed in the experience. The nervousness that had gripped her at the beginning had completely faded, replaced by a sense of flow and purpose. Each note was deliberate, each pause intentional, and each melody carried the emotion she had felt throughout the evening. The wealthy man's steady presence and the supportive reactions of the audience created a safe space for her to explore her talent without fear. She began to experiment with subtle variations, adding small flourishes and unexpected chords that enhanced the beauty of the music. The atmosphere in the restaurant had transformed completely. What had started as an ordinary evening had become something extraordinary, a shared experience of music, courage, and human connection. Guests were no longer simply observers. They were participants in the moment, feeling the emotion and energy radiating from her performance. The young waitress could feel the room responding to her music, the connection between her and the audience deepening with each phrase she played. It was a rare and powerful experience, one that would remain in her memory for years to come. She noticed that her own emotions were being shaped by the responses around her. The smiles, the nods, the soft applause, they all created a feedback loop of encouragement and confidence. She had never realized how much external validation could reinforce inner strength, and she felt a profound sense of gratitude for the people who had allowed her to experience this. The wealthy man's quiet support was a crucial part of this moment, giving her the courage to take risks and trust her instincts. His gesture had transformed a simple invitation into a life-changing experience. The young waitress allowed herself to take a deep breath, savoring the moment. She had discovered something about herself she had never known, the ability to step into the unknown and embrace her own potential. Each note she played was not only music but a reflection of her journey, her resilience, and her willingness to embrace opportunity. The audience, fully engaged and moved, became a mirror of her own emotions, reinforcing the power of connection and shared experience. As the melody progressed, the young waitress felt a sense of joy and fulfillment that was entirely new. She had faced fear and uncertainty and had emerged with confidence, skill, and a deep connection to those around her. The wealthy man's presence continued to offer reassurance, a silent acknowledgement of her courage and talent. Guests responded with increasing enthusiasm, some clapping softly in time with the music, others offering words of encouragement and admiration. The room was alive with energy, a testament to the power of authenticity and human connection. She experimented further, exploring the piano in ways she had never dared before. The melodies became more complex, the rhythms more fluid, and the emotion more palpable. She could feel the audience's engagement, their emotional resonance feeding back into her own performance. The experience became a dialogue, a shared journey of courage, creativity, and expression. She realized that the music had become a bridge, connecting her own inner world with the hearts of the people around her. The wealthy man's expression reflected quiet pride. He had created an opportunity for someone to experience recognition and growth, and now he witnessed the profound impact of that moment. It was a reminder that influence and resources could be used to facilitate genuine human connection, to inspire courage and self-discovery in ways that money alone could not achieve. The young waitress's performance was not just about skill or talent. It was about the bravery to step into the unknown and the joy of discovering one's own potential. Minutes passed, yet it felt both fleeting and eternal. The young waitress, fully immersed in the music, lost track of time. Each phrase, each note, was a testament to her courage and authenticity. The audience remained captivated, their attention fully on her, responding with subtle gestures of appreciation and encouragement. The restaurant, once a place of routine and work, had transformed into a space of magic, creativity, and shared human experience. Finally, she began to bring the music to a gentle conclusion. The final notes lingered in the air, soft and deliberate, allowing the audience to fully absorb the emotion of the moment. Silence followed for a heartbeat, as if the room collectively held its breath, savoring the end of the performance. Then, applause erupted, spontaneous, heartfelt, and enthusiastic. The young waitress, breathless and smiling, felt a sense of accomplishment and joy unlike anything she had ever experienced. She had faced fear, embraced opportunity, and created a moment of beauty that resonated with everyone present. The wealthy man approached her, offering words of genuine admiration and encouragement. His praise was sincere, acknowledging her courage, talent, and willingness to embrace the unexpected. Guests joined in, sharing their appreciation and congratulating her for a performance that had touched their hearts. The young waitress felt a profound sense of fulfillment, knowing that she had stepped into a moment of transformation, not only for herself but for everyone in the room. It was a reminder that courage, authenticity, and human connection could create extraordinary experiences, even in the most ordinary settings. The final notes of her performance floated gently through the restaurant, leaving a hushed awe in their wake. Guests who had been leaning forward, holding their breath, began to release it with soft exclamations and spontaneous applause. The young waitress remained at the piano, feeling a rush of emotions that words could not capture. Her hands hovered above the keys, not because she needed to continue, but because the experience had left her in a state of wonder, disbelief, and quiet triumph. She realized in that moment that she had stepped beyond the boundaries of her everyday life and discovered a piece of herself she had never known. The wealthy man approached, his steps deliberate but unassuming. He did not crowd her. He did not speak loudly over the applause. Instead, he offered a sincere, quiet acknowledgement of what she had accomplished. He praised her courage, her willingness to step into the unknown, and her talent, which had blossomed in front of everyone. His words carried weight, not because of his wealth or status, but because of their authenticity. The young waitress felt a warmth spread through her, a validation that extended far beyond skill. It was about being seen and appreciated for stepping out of her comfort zone and embracing possibility. Guests continued to approach her, sharing smiles, gentle words of praise, and expressions of awe. Some recounted how moved they were by the performance. Others spoke about the courage it took to stand in front of a crowd. The young waitress listened, blushing and smiling, absorbing each reaction with gratitude. The applause, the encouraging nods, and the sincere admiration from people she had served countless times suddenly felt different, more profound. She realized that her work, her presence, and her willingness to try something unexpected had created a shared moment of beauty that went beyond ordinary interactions. For a brief moment, the restaurant seemed to exist in a different rhythm, one that was slower, richer, and filled with connection. The usual sounds of clinking cutlery and background chatter had returned, but the atmosphere was forever altered by the evening's events. Each guest carried a memory of the young waitress playing the piano, a moment of authenticity that had touched their hearts and created a story they would remember. The young waitress herself felt transformed, as though a part of her had been awakened. A sense of self-confidence, joy, and possibility that she could carry into every part of her life. She looked toward the wealthy man again, feeling a sense of gratitude that went beyond simple thanks. His invitation, his quiet encouragement, and his belief in her potential had created an opportunity that she could never have imagined. She realized that moments of transformation often come unexpectedly, and that courage can be nurtured when someone offers trust and support without judgment. The applause from the guests, the smiles, and the words of encouragement were all amplified by the significance of the gesture, the recognition of her humanity and her talent. The young waitress felt herself reflecting on the journey of the evening. Hours earlier, she had been immersed in routine, serving meals, refilling drinks, and managing the expectations of a busy restaurant. She had moved through the familiar rhythm of work, often unnoticed beyond polite greetings and occasional thanks. Yet, in a single, unexpected moment, she had been invited to step into a different role, one that allowed her to reveal her creativity, courage, and authenticity. The contrast between the ordinary and the extraordinary was stark, leaving her with a sense of awe and renewed self-belief. The audience remained engaged, some lingering to offer additional words of encouragement, others taking photos or quietly nodding in appreciation. The young waitress recognized the impact of her actions beyond herself, understanding that the experience had created ripples of inspiration and connection. Strangers had been drawn together, united by the beauty of the music, the courage it took to play, and the shared experience of witnessing something genuine and heartfelt. It was a reminder that human connection and emotion could create powerful, lasting memories. The wealthy man spoke once more softly, without needing to command attention. He reminded her that moments like this, rare and meaningful, often arise when courage meets opportunity. His words were gentle, yet they resonated deeply. The young waitress understood that the evening had not been about performance or recognition for its own sake. It had been about embracing the chance to grow, to express herself, and to connect with others. The music, the audience, and the encouragement she had received all combined to create a transformative experience that she would carry with her for life. As the applause began to fade, the young waitress allowed herself to relax fully. She had given her best not for judgment or approval, but simply because she had been brave enough to take the step. The feeling of accomplishment was not hollow or fleeting. It was rooted in authenticity, courage, and the shared human experience she had just lived. She realized that she had discovered a new layer of herself, one capable of vulnerability, creativity, and connection, even in situations that once felt daunting. The guests continued to express their admiration, some sharing personal stories about how the performance had moved them or inspired them to pursue their own passions. The young waitress listened quietly, feeling both humbled and empowered. She had never imagined that a single evening could have such a profound impact on herself and others. The experience had transformed not only her perception of herself, but also the way she viewed the potential for connection and inspiration in everyday life. The wealthy man offered a final word of encouragement, emphasizing the importance of recognizing opportunity and embracing moments that challenge and uplift. His gestures, words, and support had created a safe space for growth, and she felt a deep appreciation for the faith he had shown in her. The young waitress realized that true generosity often manifests as belief in someone else's potential, not as gifts or material wealth. The evening had been a testament to the transformative power of encouragement, trust, and authentic recognition. As the night drew to a close, the young waitress slowly stepped away from the piano, still feeling the lingering energy of the audience and the depth of her own emotions. The restaurant, returning to its normal rhythm, seemed both familiar and altered, as though it had been touched by something extraordinary. She carried with her a sense of accomplishment, joy, and courage that would remain long after the last guest had left. The experience had reminded her that even ordinary days could contain moments of magic when one was willing to step forward, embrace opportunity, and trust oneself. The wealthy man departed quietly, leaving behind a room filled with smiles, stories, and lingering admiration. His gesture had sparked a chain of inspiration, not only for the young waitress but for every guest who had witnessed her courage and talent. The evening had become more than a performance. It had become a story of human connection, bravery, and the unexpected beauty that emerges when ordinary life intersects with extraordinary opportunity. The young waitress reflected on the night, realizing that she had grown in ways she had never anticipated. She had faced fear, embraced uncertainty, and discovered the joy of self-expression in a public space. The experience had shown her that courage is often quiet and subtle, emerging in moments of vulnerability and trust. It had also revealed the profound impact that one person's belief in another can have, creating opportunities that ripple outward and inspire others. In the days and weeks that followed, the memory of that evening remained vivid. Guests shared their recollections, friends spoke of the remarkable performance, and the young waitress herself carried a renewed sense of possibility. She had discovered that ordinary lives can hold extraordinary moments, that courage can transform fear into beauty, and that human connection is a gift that multiplies when shared. The restaurant, the piano, and the crowd had all become part of her story, a story of transformation, bravery, and authentic expression that would stay with her forever. In the end, the young waitress understood that the true reward of the evening was not fame, applause, or recognition alone. It was the experience of stepping beyond her comfort zone, embracing her own potential, and connecting with others in a meaningful and lasting way. She had been invited, encouraged, and supported, and in doing so, she had discovered the extraordinary within the ordinary, the magic that arises when courage, opportunity, and humanity intersect. That night had become a memory of triumph, joy, and inspiration, a story she would carry with her, sharing it quietly with those who needed to be reminded that bravery and authenticity can create moments of lasting beauty and connection.